We're glad you're still here with us. Remember to keep the feedback coming. #NewsGang, even when you think we are retired news anchors. It's okay.
I'm not 91.
Jamila is the youngest, so you might just be the 91-year-old. All right, so this week we were told that there was no prosecutor in this country who either could or wanted to prosecute a very senior member of the judiciary. That's Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu. So much so that DPP Noordin had to go all the way, cross borders, cross continents, to the UK to get us Queen's Counsel, no less. Here's what he had to say.
He's not coming here to handle corruption cases, all of them. He's coming for a particular case, and that is the case of the DCJ, the Deputy Chief Justice, which is a case of great public importance, as you will all agree.
So, the precedent that this has set, some are saying, so what will happen every time we have a high-profile individual, even though the law does allow the AG to actually get someone. You have spoken and interviewed Noordin Haji. You know, let's talk about this and what it means, the morale for you know, the prosecutors in the country, and the DPP now starting to look like, okay, you know, there's things that are going on here that we absolutely cannot handle.
Our country's judicial process is also very political. I mean, look at the caliber of lawyers representing Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu in court. 26 of them high caliber lawyers who also have some political aspect in them. And even the judges, the 5 judges who are handling this matter, it's only probably one of the reasons, if it was possible to bring some judges from outside to come and hear this matter, probably that would have happened. Because speaking to a few lawyers, they will tell you this is high pressure for DPP and even for the judges sitting to hear this matter. Imagine these judges are sitting to hear a matter on their boss. So that should also explain something. But the contention here is whether the Deputy Chief Justice should be taken to court before being taken through the Judicial Service Commission process. But now somebody has asked, somebody posed a question, and I think that's one of the pertinent issues in this case. If, for example, the Deputy Chief Justice had shot somebody and that person died, would we say, hey, wait, let the Judicial Service Commission deal with this matter before she can be taken to court for criminal matters? Because corruption is a criminal issue. So therein lies the discussion here.
Okay. Let me say something. For me, this case demonstrates what I really think may have been a strategic misstep on the part of the DPP. Why do I say that? I think that if you look at the history of corruption in this country, if you look at the anatomy of corruption, if you look at the nature of the cases and the whole process, Gashuri talked about the political nature of corruption cases. So our corruption cases in this country are not just about the law, that you broke the law, we're going to take you to court, you're going to go through the process and get jailed. Why do I say it was a strategic misstep? First, this is the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya. Where is she located? Her workplace, the judiciary. What is the judiciary supposed to do? Secure convictions so that this drive that the DPP has could gain momentum. Because we needed to nail a few people for us to now see that, oh wow, something has really changed here. So what has this done? This one has actually, first of all, it divided the country to some degree, given that the DCJ was seen as the face of the presidential petition that basically ended up with the historic nullification of the presidential election. So there's something that she represents politically to a certain number of Kenyans. So the moment that she's taken there, And for a case which, in my view, was not necessarily the biggest high profile, the most talked about case in the country, it could have waited. I mean, it's not to say that no one should be prosecuted, but perhaps it could have waited. What would have that done? It would have bought him time to get other people, to get the buy-in of the judiciary, to get certain people jailed here and there, so that by the time he's coming for a big fish in the judiciary, then we actually have sufficient momentum that it will be very difficult for anyone to stop it. But I think at this stage, this hitch is likely, in my view, and unfortunately so, to slow down the DPP to the point that actually he might begin to get mired in the usual rigmarole that we see with all corruption cases in the country.
Yes, I'm sorry, something that Joe said also I'd like to respond to. It's a question of timing, I think, with this particular case involving DCJ Mwilu, because when the DPP came into office and we had all this happening, there was a lot of goodwill about it and everyone was singing his praises, including the judiciary. But then after this, things have kind of like changed. It's not like he has all the support that he had before. The narrative across the country has changed a bit. And we saw it quite a bit today in Parliament, in court, actually, when we had Senior Counsel James Orengo complaining or protesting against having Qureshi there for this particular case. And Dorcas Odor was speaking about it afterwards, and she said, but yesterday when we were before the Senate committee, the DPP explained why he decided to bring in this lawyer from the UK. And the issues that are being raised in court right now were not raised before the Senate. And in fact, they requested to have Senator Orengo and also Okongo Mugeni to recuse themselves from the case, because they're both senators and they're also in the Senate committee, which plays an oversight role to the office of the DPP and could have information about this case that could affect it.
But Linus, does this address the issue within the justice system? I mean, I think it has been clear that the issue within the justice system has been weak investigations, such that it doesn't matter who the prosecutor is, he can't prosecute a good case on the basis of poor investigations. Absolutely. So how would a foreign prosecutor then overcome this?
Absolutely. It's actually the question that Noordin Haji will have to grapple with, because there should be the next stage to his work, which is convictions, success in court. We don't know him to have achieved yet anything yet. First, because first of all, he's very new and a lot of those cases have just landed in court. But the explanation that has been given about the arrival of Qureshi, supposedly because he's detached from the environment, he's not emotionally involved with the politics of this country, I think it may not hold water at the end of the day. Because this case, like Joe had explained, will always potentially be seen against the backdrop of the presidential petition. And there's these words that hang over all the 6 judges, or 4 maybe, who actually nullified the presidential election, that we shall revisit. Now, we shall revisit is being seen in many ways. It could be, in the case of corruption against judges, could be valid corruption questions. 2, the changes at the JSC. Some of those things are all seen against the backdrop of the very heated period between August and December last year, when the presidential election was nullified. Now, for Noordin Haji, he needs to be very aware of this context. He needs to know that the office, I think he's got 8 years.
Yes, it's 8-year term, yes.
8 years term. The political beef around the presidential petition, first of all, a big deal of it has been dealt with a handshake. A lot of it has been dealt with. So he should look at the office of the DPP beyond the political issues that we had last year. Because should he carry this for long, and especially without solid public support, then he'll be seen to be basically walking around with a skunk.
But is this political as well? I mean, was he having someone, then he can then say, I did everything, munataka nifanye nini jameni. I gave you a foreign prosecutor, this is what I have done. Does this get him off the hook?
There's something about the fight against corruption and the attempt to protect one of our own. For example, in the judiciary, everybody would be looking at it, if the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice goes down, so can any other judge.
Right.
So the whole fight against corruption, and well, it permeates across the sectors. I mean, there's corruption in the judiciary, there's corruption in the legislature, there's corruption in the executive. So if the second top judge in the country falls as a result of allegations of corruption, then it means no other judge can't fall. Any other judge can fall. And so there may be some sense in what the DPP is saying, but obviously it will get some resistance, bearing in mind who is at the dock.
But even it also speaks to something that I think we have seen in this country for many years. Remember when we had the election dispute even in 2007, we all kept saying, oh, let someone come from the UN. We had to bring Kufuor, we tried Ramaphosa, and all of that ended up with Kofi Annan and the eminent, the panel, I think it was called, of eminent persons. In the end, and the other day when we had some problems, we had people like Ekuru or Court, for example, saying
the UN should manage
this thing,
our
we can't
election.
handle it, get the UN. So we have this perennial, chronic distrust in ourselves, in our own institutions. We don't trust ourselves. And so I see where the DPP is coming from when he says, okay, let me get someone who is going to be at least dispassionate, who is not embedded in all this. Because you find someone is a lawyer, but then they are related to I don't know who. You find someone is a judge and they are perceived to be related. Even if it does not make a difference in terms of how they will make decisions. But those perceptions
and
tend
John,
to
that
be
point it will get worse because
strong.
He's in the process. He's in the process of getting or recruiting more lawyers to his list
from
from
here, including a former DPP those days.
Yes.
But my point is that it speaks to something that perhaps calls for reflection as a country, quite frankly, because how can it be that every time we have a difficult question, we imagine that it is someone who's going to come from out there to come and help us sort this thing. It is something that you will see in all. There's someone who actually even said that our exams should be supervised. I don't know, there's a time they were being printed in London and people are still stealing election materials in Dubai.
But the irony of it all, Yvonne, is look at the level of public confidence the office of DPP enjoys. Look at the level of public confidence the DCI, George Kinoti, enjoys. Look at the level of confidence the CBK governor, Professor Patrick Njoroge enjoys. Who else? We can finish in one but it means out there in this country, and remember one of the things that we're famed with around the region is quality human resource. There are a lot of good people in this country. There are a lot of good lawyers who can actually do a thorough job. DCI and DPP have demonstrated in a very short while that with the correct will, you can actually do some of these jobs. But they need to know that you have to navigate a very wild terrain, which is where the DPP sits today. He needs to know that very, very easily the momentum can be taken away by steps that he takes, even in good faith.
Truth be told, one of the biggest problems that we face as a country, one of the issues that we have been unable to resolve for many years, is the trust in our institutions. For example, some of the things that Justice retired Johan Kriegler said about the 2007 general election were things that could have been said by any other electoral expert in this country. But would we have listened to him?
If it was
said by somebody locally, would have said, no. There's a way we look at people locally. When they say something, you look at them from a certain prism. But when that solution or that suggestion or that recommendation comes from elsewhere, it carries some more weight. Probably this is the time, this is an opportunity for the country to start trusting its people and its institutions.
Even as you talk about that, and we're saying that, you know, the prosecutors would be essentially sort of trying their boss. Wouldn't the same be said of the judges who are sitting there? Those judges are actually hired by the JSC. And Mwilu is essentially their boss. And remember, there's not even been a tribunal to remove her from office. So for all intents and purposes, she's still their boss. And they are the ones sitting there, this five-judge bench, deciding the fate of someone who is essentially their boss. So should we, in the same vein, say, well, you know, there might be a conflict there, let's get judges from outside. Then we get a prosecutor from outside. Then, in fact, let's hold this court case outside the country where there can be no intimidation of witnesses. You know what I'm saying?
I think the judiciary has demonstrated that, first of all, everyone is equal under the law. Let's remember the first day Mwilu was arrested, she was taken to the chief magistrate, Magistrate
Mugambi, yeah.
A junior in terms of the ranks, but she appeared there not as the DCJ, but as an accused person. So I don't think anybody should really question that the 5-judge bench would.
Well, it's not necessarily a question.
Although she got some differential treatment that day.
But I guess the point
she didn't spend the night in jail.
She also got some very differential treatment.
My earlier point, Yvonne, which is what I think we would bear in mind, because I see there are people who seem to think that well, I mean, yeah, we have the law and therefore let's just follow it and everything, and I'm all for that, but I'm just saying that there has to be a strategy given a context, because all these things are not happening in a vacuum. We know in this country that politics play a role. We know in this country that tribalism plays a role. We know in this country that the law is not just the law. Even the judges, whatever, they know that whatever decisions they make it within a certain context, which is why I'm saying the DPP comes into office to do a very difficult job, a job that has been fraught with all manner of risks, political interference, corruption itself,
threats even. He's talked about threats,
and all of that. So if you're going to go into that sort of thing, you need such huge momentum in terms of the country being behind you. And therefore, there are certain things that will be good to do, but you will not do them because they will stand in the way of the bigger success that you're looking at. Because that is that momentum that would have carried him to where he is going is what we are losing, in my view, right now. Him bogged down in this DCJ thing.
But let me ask you, Joe, is this the first chink in his armor? Because he's been the hero, you know, with the cape and
but
with
what
the S on his chest.
did you see when the DCJ was accused for the first time? What kind of lawyers did you see there?
There were 36 of them.
How many were there?
Who
are they? Those lawyers.
Political.
Yes.
So
it
that
reminded you exactly of what happened during the petition. There were those same lawyers. When that happens, what do the other people see? The people, for example, who were supporting the president that time, who looked at all these lawyers and said, look at these guys, what are they doing here? What does the other side see during the election? So it has this potential of being caught up in the politics of the country, the polarization that makes the work of the DPP extremely difficult.
And they could have foreseen that. I think we forget quite easily as Kenyans. Yvonne, let me say this quickly, that it's not good to compare, but the previous holder of this office, and we spoke about it last week, and he said that he came across as a bit cautious and all that. How many times do you have this particular DPP hitting the news headlines almost on a daily basis because of going after particular people? And we didn't have this before. I think we need to start looking at that.
Is he activist?
No, he's not.
No.
In my view,
he did well.
In my view, Joe, Noordin Haji is for the first time functioning as should the holder of that office. Constitutionally, and we spoke about that last week, that office is very well protected. You get an 8-year term, one term to do your job. You are very, very independent. You can hold anybody into court as long as you have evidence. So, and you look worldwide, the office of the prosecutor is very, very serious and respected. It even comes with personality. And you look at some of the top prosecutors in the world, they have a lot of personality.
There's a flair.
There's flair. It's about the language. You remember the prosecutor that executed the case against Oscar Pistorius in South Africa. Very, very. Even Ocampo himself. And there's something about these fellows as well. There's a look that goes but it's a mustache, it's a beard, it's personality. Ocampo, you look at Ocampo, and earlier you had Osted Qureshi. That mustache looks nasty. It can
it's like Inspector Clouseau.
I don't have one like that of the prosecutor, but the scorecard of a good prosecutor is in successful prosecutions and gaining convictions or hefty fines in that particular case. So it is not enough to take many cases to court, have many people arrested with a lot of drama and Kamata Friday and so on and so forth. I mean, today is Thursday, Friday tomorrow, many CEOs and
warm jackets.
They carry warm jackets in their vehicles because they don't know whether they watangukiwa in the Kamata. But all this will amount to nothing if these guys are taken to court and there is no successful prosecution.
Exactly.
As long as there are no convictions, then
It's
even in the 8 years...
It's too early, Francis.
well, but
it's
you see,
really, in all fairness,
but
it's
you
too
see-
early to judge Noordin on the point of convictions.
Even
because
then-
he's just started. We have
But I think
NYOs,
even then,
we have
ultimately-
KPC, we have quite a number of cases that are just going into court.
In the same way,
Ultimately-
Linus, it's also too early for us to celebrate him and make him a hero. He's doing as is required
Yes.
of him in
But
this office.
ultimately,
let us wait
the
for
we have
convictions.
previous
at the end of the
officer
term.
holders to compare him
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
is what
so far
we're
so
saying.
good,
Because
but you know, let's be a little
if
cautious. Let's see
suspects-
what happens.
If suspects live in fear on Friday,
Then at least
that
half
they
the
should
job
not
is done.
meet him, that is authority. That's something to take note
No, I
of.
know. I mean, and I think of the same
Because
thing.
the
If you don't
previous
pay bus
holders
fare, you think
did
Noordin
not
is
make that
He's going to come after you.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, and I think that's the thing, convictions. And it would be an interesting scenario should we get to the end of this case and there's no conviction of the DCJ.
Let's see.
I can't wait to see the questions that Kenyans will have. How much money have we spent on this guy? And then we didn't even secure a conviction if that is what happens at the end of it. But like with this one, time will tell. So,
Time will
you
tell.
know,
Time will tell.
I mean, we certainly wish him the best.
We wish him the best.
Yeah, yeah,
Last
so-
word time, I think. A former IEBC commissioner, Margaret Mwachanya, spent 1.7 million shillings to attend a leadership training, hear this, in London, that had no relation to the commission's work. The 4-day training at London Graduate School that was attended by Mwachanya was fully funded by the Electoral Commission in April, just 12 days before she and 2 other commissioners resigned. Now, the former commissioner was unable to explain to the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee why the IEBC fully paid for her trip, including an air ticket and allowances for 4 days. Now, she defended the training, saying her honorary doctorate was awarded due to her work in public service, not just at the Electoral Commission. Now, Mwachanya shocked the MPs when she admitted that she could not remember the name of the university that awarded her the honorary doctoral degree in April. Interesting.
Wow. I think it must have been a very interesting one. But a more interesting one was in Kiambu County. You know, President Uhuru Kenyatta is always on high demand. He has so many places to visit, too many things to do, and obviously too many projects to launch. So whenever a county gets an opportunity to host the president, it must put its best foot forward. So yesterday, Kiambu County had an opportunity to host the president, who is also one of its most illustrious sons. But guess what? The highlight of Kenyatta's tour of Kiambu County was a graduation ceremony for reforming drunkards at the Mama Care Rehabilitation Center. Among the graduates was Githeriman. Yes, Githeriman, the guy who was awarded a head of state commendation, HSC, raising questions on the seriousness of the awards that are accorded to such people. And it was also a very heated opportunity, and in fact, a scramble for drunkards. Wamushomba versus Waitito. Take a look.
I think they
I think we've lost it.
Yeah.
Just like probably the war on alcohol for those guys who are getting 400 shillings per day, 2 million bob every week. Oh, you got it. Hi, let's play it.
Hawa vijana ambao wananifanya hivi hawanipendi. Hawanipendi kwa sababu mimi huwa nasema kabla wapewe pesa na baba yao lazima watibiwe wale wako na shida ya kulewa.
Mimi nasikia vibaya sana. Ikiwa watu kama hii ati wapelekwe, hawa utawapeleka watu 6,500. Utawapeleka rehab gani? Na watu wengine hawa wako na watoto nyumbani. Hawezi enda rehab kwa sababu wako na watoto. Hata kama alikuwa anakuja pombe, bado anataka nyumbani na kitu kidogo ya kukuliwa. Kwa hivyo sasa ile mimi nawapatia kitu kidogo ni kwa sababu wanafanya kazi ya mitaro. Hawa ndio wanafagia hapa, na pia hawa ndio wanalinda serikali yako sasa mashinani.
That kitu kidogo the governor is talking about is 400 shillings per day for 6,500 recovering addicts of alcohol. That is 2 million shillings per day from the county government coffers. I think it's profitable to drink in Kiambu County.
Wow, isn't that a good point to also launch my last word? Yes, I said launch because in this country we launch everything, and when we do, we make a big party out of it. I do not know any other country in the world where the mere release of results of a national exam, for example, is an event complete with an entertainment session. And the minister or the CS in these days will have to officially release the results. This is also a country where governors launch cows, chicken, gates, and wheelbarrows. When a state agency, say the EACC, comes up with a beautiful plan on how to fight corruption, for instance, you'd think they would just go ahead and implement it. But no, it needs to be launched. And yes, there will be an entertainment station with choirs singing all manner of unrelated songs. And then when some suspects are finally in the radar, you guessed it, the police will launch investigations. And when they think they have their man, they will then launch a manhunt. It would be great if there were enough convictions to be launched, actually, as well. But for now, it's time to go, for I will shortly need to launch my sleep.
At that point, indeed, I'll also launch my
Your last one.
last word, Joe.
Yes. We can start with the choirs.
And the flag.
To get you ready,
and
yeah?
confetti.
Yes. Yeah.
And indeed, next week, Wednesday, the 12th of December, we commemorate 55 years as an independent nation. Traditionally, the independence celebrations are followed by the issuing of state awards to outstanding Kenyans. And I use the word outstanding here with reservation, because our history is littered with questionable awards to individuals that do not represent merit. This is one of them. This man, nicknamed Githeri Man, won a state award for turning up to vote and lining up with a paper bag of Githeri. To be fair, the Githeri paper bag stood out and caught the attention of the media cameras, and subsequently the attention of whoever chooses who to award a state medal. For next week, here is my tip-off to the State Awards Committee. Eliud Kipchoge is the athletics king of the world, and the Harambee Stars have just qualified for the Africa Cup of Nations. Another hint, they'll not be bearing or holding paper bags.
Oh my.
Or maybe they should. Seeing as that might be the only way to get a head of state commendation in this country. And on that note, this is my last word. I hereby launch your night and your sleep. Good night. Consider Thursday night and your sleep now officially launched.
And News Gang officially closed.
Yes. We can launch the closing of News Gang as well. Cue the sisal skirts and the choirs and the confetti. Good night.
Good night.